The blue curtain rippled beneath the studio lights, the band's brass riff rising over the noise of an audience that had already forgotten to sit down. The Tonight Show's cameras swept across rows of waving signs, faces flushed under the glow of phones. And then Jimmy Fallon's voice thundered through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only,
Taylor Swift!"
She stepped out like a spark caught in slow motion. Elegant, effortless, smiling wide enough to light the room but calm enough to look in control of it. She waved, thanked the band, crossed the stage with practiced ease, and hugged Jimmy. The cheer that followed sounded more like a concert than a talk show. Jimmy grinned. "I can already tell this is going to be fun." Taylor sat, smoothed the edge of her jacket, and replied, "It's always fun when it's live." The crowd laughed, warm, easy laughter. But the energy already carried that faint, unexplainable tension that always appears before something unscripted happens. She had that kind of stillness that made you pay attention. Even before the conversation started, you could feel it. She wasn't here to play along. She was here to say something. They started safe. Jimmy asked about the tour. 50 cities, sold-out arenas, the logistics of moving an entire stage city to city. Taylor answered with practiced clarity, mixing humor with humility. "The hardest part," she said, "is convincing my cats that I'm not abandoning them." The audience laughed again, relaxed, reassured. Then Jimmy turned the cards in his hands, glancing at the next cue. "You've been doing this since you were a teenager," he said. "You've seen fame change a lot. Everyone's got a platform now. Everyone's got a story. Do you ever look at the way celebrities handle fame and think, wow, that's not how I'd do it?" It was an innocent question on paper, but the air in the studio shifted the second it left his mouth. Taylor didn't blink. She smiled, tilted her head, and said, "All the time. But mostly when people act surprised that fame comes with attention." The audience gave a small burst of laughter that turned into cheers. Jimmy raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, her tone soft but precise. "You can't invite the world to your party and then complain that they showed up. Fame isn't a surprise, it's a contract. You sign it every time you post, every time you call the cameras. People forget that." The crowd gasped, then applauded. Jimmy tried to speak, but the noise drowned him out. He laughed, half embarrassed, half delighted. "That's one way to look at it." Taylor shrugged, smiling again. "It's the honest way," the room roared. It wasn't mean, it was magnetic. She had taken a polite question and turned it into something sharp, philosophical, and instantly quotable. You could almost see the tweets forming. Jimmy shifted in his seat, playing along. "So basically, no one gets to play the victim if they built the stage themselves?" Taylor laughed lightly. "That's your quote, not mine. But yes, exactly." The audience clapped, the band hit a playful chord, and Jimmy held his hands up in mock surrender. Okay, she's warming up now. But everyone could tell she wasn't warming up, she was steering. The tone had changed, the questions that followed. About writing, about inspiration, about the line between public and private life. Each led to another measured answer. When Jimmy asked how she stayed grounded, she said, "By remembering that silence is power. If you don't need to defend yourself, you probably don't owe anyone an explanation." The line landed like a pin drop. For a moment, there was quiet. Then the audience erupted again. Clapping, shouting, whistling. Even Jimmy joined in. "That's another t-shirt line right there." Taylor laughed, calm and unbothered. "Make sure it's printed on recycled cotton." The laughter rolled again. But behind it, the tension built. She was drawing invisible lines about accountability, performance, and victimhood, lines that everyone watching online would later connect to someone else. As the segment's music cue began to play, Jimmy tried to wrap up. "We'll be right back after the break, folks. Don't go anywhere." But the audience was still cheering, still processing, still quoting her under their breath. The red light blinked off and the camera pulled back to a wide shot of the stage. No one knew it yet, but those two short sentences, about contracts and silence, would dominate timelines before the night was over. The red light over the camera blinked back on. Music faded. Applause ebbed. Jimmy turned toward his guest with that practiced late-night grin, the one that usually smoothed everything out. "All right," he said brightly. "We were talking about staying grounded. You make it sound so easy, like you've got a manual." Taylor's smile was easy too, but her eyes stayed fixed. No manual, she said. Just boundaries. Everyone wants honesty until it's about them. A ripple of laughter ran through the room, half amusement, half surprise. Jimmy chuckled, playing along. You're saying celebrities don't like honesty? I'm saying people don't, she replied. Fame just gives them microphones to prove it. The laughter cracked louder this time. Jimmy tried to steer it back to light comedy, waving at the crowd. You sound like you've been keeping a list. Taylor raised an eyebrow. I don't need a list. They usually announce themselves. That did it, the audience howled, clapping and cheering, while Jimmy leaned back, pretending to be wounded. Oh, she came to play tonight. Taylor laughed, shaking her head. No, I came to talk. Everyone else turns it into a game. For a moment, the studio quieted. Even the drummer paused, sticks frozen above the snare. Jimmy lowered his cards, sensing the shift. Okay, he said, voice softer now. Then talk to me. What do you think the game is? The game, she said, is pretending vulnerability only counts when it's on camera. Silence. Then applause. Slow at first, then swelling into a roar. Phones in the back rows lifted. Screens glowing. Jimmy whistled. That's deep for a Tuesday night. Taylor smiled. Every night's deep if you listen long enough, the bandleader laughed into his mic. She's doing philosophy now. Taylor looked toward him. No, just observation. The crowd loved it. Cheers, whistles, stomps against the risers. Jimmy turned back to camera one, half grinning. You know this clip's going viral before we finish, right? Then we should give them something worth watching, she said, still perfectly calm. Laughter thundered again. She wasn't angry, wasn't mocking, just impossibly composed, dissecting fame with the precision of someone who'd studied it from the inside. The host could only sit there, laughing, shaking his head as the audience chanted her name. When the applause finally softened, Jimmy leaned forward. So what do you tell young artists who want to follow your path? She thought for a second, then said, decide whether you want admiration or peace. You rarely get both. The crowd reacted like a wave hitting a wall, a mixture of awe and noise that even the microphones couldn't balance. Jimmy raised his mug in salute. That's the quote of the night, she smiled. And then my job's done. The segment clock flashed its cue, but nobody wanted to cut. You could feel the hum of a collective realization. They were watching a masterclass in control disguised as small talk. The show ended like any other. Jimmy thanking the band, waving to the cameras and sending the audience home laughing. But by midnight, the internet had already transformed the moment into an event. Clips of the conversation appeared everywhere. On streaming feeds, fan accounts, and reaction channels titled, The Night Truth Outshined Comedy. Subtitles raced across TikTok. You can't ask for attention and complain people are looking. Vulnerability only counts when it's on camera. Admiration or peace, choose. Each line carried its own echo. Some called it graceful honesty, others called it a quiet dismantling of modern celebrity culture. Every outlet had its angle. Entertainment blogs posted freeze frames of Jimmy's expression, mid-laugh, mid-shock. Commenters flooded the threads. She didn't name anyone, but everyone heard their name. On the network's YouTube channel, the segment broke records. Views climbed in real time. Thousands of comments poured in, analyzing pauses, tone, posture. A media professor posted a breakdown describing it as a textbook example of rhetorical control, assertive without aggression. Morning programs replayed the clip like breaking news. One anchor said, "It's rare to see someone redefine an entire conversation with a smile." Another added, "That's not shade, that's sunlight, bright enough to expose everything." Even Jimmy mentioned it in his monologue the next night, joking, "Apparently my show became a masterclass in emotional accountability. Next week, I'll just take notes." The audience laughed, but the point stuck. No one had forgotten the interview. Social media did what it always does: exaggerated, debated, dissected. Some users argued she'd spoken for every artist tired of PR-polished victim stories. Others said it was simply a reminder to own your narrative. Either way, the message landed. Music journalists wrote that Taylor had evolved beyond pop star territory into a public thinker who weaponizes clarity. Culture critics dubbed it the Fallon flashpoint. And she said nothing. No tweet, no clarification, no wink to the crowd. Silence again. The same silence she'd praised on stage. Her followers read it as confirmation that the performance had spoken for itself. Within days, talk show producers referenced it in meetings. "Keep it loose, but watch for a swift moment," one note read, industry code for any guest who might hijack the tone with sincerity sharper than comedy. A week later, a late-night rival joked that she'd given Truth a late-night residency. The line got a laugh, but everyone in the room knew it was half admiration, because after that night, every host understood the risk of inviting her. She didn't need confrontation to dominate. She just needed a chair and a question asked in good faith. The internet eventually moved on, as it always does, but the clip stayed, bookmarked, replayed, studied. Fans called it "The Night Honesty Trended," and somewhere, on another stage weeks later, she smiled into a microphone and said quietly before a song, "Sometimes words travel farther than you ever meant them to." The crowd cheered. Phones lit up again. A single moment on a talk show couch had become folklore, proof that grace, when spoken with precision, can outshine any spotlight. By sunrise, every feed looked the same. Screen grabs from The Tonight Show couch, headlines in bold fonts, looping gifs of the guest smiling while the host blinked in disbelief. What had begun as an Easy Tuesday booking was now the clip of the week. Entertainment sites pushed push alerts before breakfast. "The moment of silence that shook late night," one wrote. "When composure became a mic drop," said another. Even outlets that never covered television talk shows ran short think pieces. Morning anchors replayed the exchange between traffic reports. "We've all been there," one of them said on air, trying to laugh through a truth bomb we didn't see coming. The show's producers arrived at Rockefeller Plaza to an email inbox that looked like a slot machine, offers from streaming services, licensing requests from international networks, memes pouring out faster than they could track them. The segment had outperformed the network's primetime drama reruns within 12 hours. And the guest, nowhere to be seen. No tweets, no press statements, no cheeky emojis, just silence. The absence itself became a headline. By afternoon, culture journalists were calling it a masterclass in restraint. A critic from Variety wrote, "We're witnessing the return of conversation as spectacle. No pyrotechnics, no scandal. Just words, timing, and the confidence to stop talking when you've already said enough." The phrase "Oscar contract and silence" trended for a full day. Teenagers used it as a caption under motivational videos. Communication professors cited it in class slides about media authenticity. The message had escaped its origin. It was now shorthand for the quiet kind of control that everyone craved and few could manage. Inside the network building, staff traded knowing smiles. Someone printed the quote, "Decide whether you want admiration or peace. You rarely get both," and taped it to the editing room door. Others started jokingly rating each future guest's ability to stay composed. "That's a 3-swift episode," they'd say. The host himself recorded his follow-up monologue that evening. He looked straight into the camera, half smiling. "Last night," he said, "I learned that sometimes you invite someone on your show, and they end up teaching you how to host your own show." The audience laughed, applauded, and gave him credit for humility. But backstage he admitted to a producer, "I wasn't ready for how quiet it got. That was louder than any joke I've ever told." A week later, the network compiled a highlight reel. Among the sketches and celebrity pranks, the quiet exchange still stood out. No background music, no edits, just 2 chairs and the echo of the audience reacting. The metrics team called it evergreen content, meaning it refused to die down. Magazine covers still mentioned it in captions, "The power of poise." Editorial boards debated why a short conversation about honesty had resonated more than any scripted special that season. Publicists whispered to their clients, "If you're going on a couch this month, have something real to say, or say nothing at all." Weeks turned into months, but the lines kept resurfacing, quoted in podcasts, stitched into TikTok transitions, repurposed as song lyrics. It became cultural shorthand, a reference point for balance, authenticity, and subtle defiance. When the next award season arrived, a montage of years' most talked about TV moments played on a giant screen. There it was again, the blue backdrop, the crowd, the guest leaning forward saying softly, "Silence is power." The theater applauded like it was new again. Somewhere else, that same night, during an arena show in another city, the performer paused between songs and looked at the sea of glowing phone lights. Someone near the front held up a sign with that exact line written in silver ink. She read it, smiled, and simply said into the mic, "Still true." The crowd erupted, finishing the lyric that followed before the first chord hit. It was more than a callback. It was proof that words, when delivered without fear, can outlive the noise that first surrounded them. Back in New York, the host watched the clip one last time in his office. He laughed, not bitterly, just amazed. "You know," he said to the floor manager, "we chase viral moments every night. She just was one, and that was the quiet end of it. No scandal, no feud, just a reminder carved into the rhythm of pop culture. A calm voice, timed perfectly, can travel farther than any shout,